Hello again, Michael Ware with the Iowa Firearms Coalition. We have an IFC special today with Brenna Bird. I always start by saying we have a special guest. It's natural, I do that. But the reality is, Attorney General Bird, you're very special to us. And I'm saying this with sincerity, and it gives me pleasure to say it. You're one of the only people that we have ever worked with at IFC over these many years, almost 20 now, that has consistently done exactly what you said you were going to do. That is a breath of fresh air. I can't state that any more openly. I'm so glad about this. So thank you for coming on today. Let's get right down to it. What should we know about Brenna Bird and your race?
Yeah, well, I'm on the ballot this year. This is my first reelection. I'm born and raised on a farm near Dexter, Iowa, and still live in Guthrie County there with my family. My husband's a veteran. And as Attorney General, I stand up for the Constitution and support our law enforcement, defend our Second Amendment rights, but we also work to keep Iowa a safe place for everybody.
That's fantastic. I believe you. Now, as I share your screen here, let me add this to the stage. We've talked about this before out there. I can't say a domain name anymore. The social media is pretty hard on us these days, but I promise people listening, those of you watching, if you type in something along the lines of Bird for Iowa in your web browser, you're going to make it there. So if they do, what can they plan on seeing? How can they be involved? And when you're done telling us that, I want you to express to us why it matters.
Yeah, well, that's where people can sign up to get campaign updates, to be a campaign supporter, to donate. We're just getting ready to buy our barn signs and yard signs, so that'll help us to get the word out there and help us this November as we're going across the finish line there. You know, it's a midterm election, and that means some people aren't paying attention. But I know that your community is paying attention just like we are, and you understand what we've done and what we will do, and just will really appreciate your help. We're a grassroots effort, and everybody matters.
That's fantastic. I see here on your site we're able to stay connected, sign up to receive, do all those things you talked about, volunteer. I'm sure door knocking and all those things would be great. As I scroll down through here, I saw somebody I recognized. For those of you watching, there's a gentleman that looks similar to Uncle Fester. We've joked about that before. Over to the right. I say, I'm just joking. But that's Warren Wethington, Sheriff Wethington from Cedar County. He's on our board of directors at IFC, and he's been a number of years. Fantastic gentleman. We really enjoy working with him. I see you've got a whole bunch of law enforcement there with you. That's fantastic.
We sure do. Those are 3 different sheriffs there. So that's Cass County, Fremont County, and Cedar County. So we've got strong support from law enforcement all across the state. And you mentioned Warren, one of your board members. I mean, he's been helping us since the very beginning because he understands how important it is to have an attorney general who will fight for you and stand up for what's right and who backs law enforcement.
Yeah, I remember when we were lining out on our website, the board of directors pictures, and he sent me one of him in a Halloween costume dressed up as Uncle Fester, and he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, probably. I said, I appreciate the humor and I like it, probably not what we're going for. So he's got a great sense of humor. But I will tell you, oh man, it escapes me, maybe you'll remember, I'm putting you on the spot, but he won some sort of award, I think from, was it the Bar Association or something, for a commitment against corruption or something like that a number of years ago?
Oh, he won a huge award. I don't know if it was the Bar Association. I'm trying to remember the group that gave it to him, but it was a very big deal. I mean, he's really been a leader, not just in Cedar County, but all across the state in the law enforcement community for a long time. And so really appreciate his work and his commitment. And he's someone that stands up for what is right and makes his voice heard.
So he's committed to the Second Amendment. You're committed to the Second Amendment. What should we know about that specifically? Because if you've got some time, I do want to segue into something else first, or next. But let us understand what you understand about the Second Amendment, why it matters. Oh, and I'm jumping all around. I apologize. I do want to mention that I saw you on a panel at the SHOT Show not that long ago. I saw your picture up there, and I'm like, honest to goodness, Attorney General Bird, I did not remember that you were going to be out there, and I saw that, and I'm like, I know her, and we got to talking about it with some friends. Anyway, just go ahead. Tell us about the Second Amendment and you.
Well, yeah, and SHOT Show is awesome. I mean, that's such an amazing event of people from all over the United States. So, a couple of things about the Second Amendment and why
Mhm.
it matters who your attorney general is. Well, it matters who goes to court to fight for our constitutional rights and to fight for our state. And that's why I'm glad to serve as attorney general. I uphold the Constitution, enforce our laws, but we also make sure that people's rights are respected. And especially when that comes to the Second Amendment, it's under assault from many different quarters. I sued the Biden administration for
Mhm.
2 years straight when they did everything they could to make it hard or to stop or deter law-abiding firearms owners from exercising their Second Amendment rights. And then Trump came in; things are a lot better there. We're working with the administration to help fix some things. They've made some great steps forward. But you look at what's happening in states like New York and California with these limits on how many rounds can be in a magazine, to the type of gun someone can buy, to whether someone can have a gun in certain places or not. Those types of things are assaults on our Second Amendment rights, and it affects all of us. And we stand up for the Second Amendment because your constitutional rights really shouldn't change one bit under the federal Constitution when you cross a state border. That's our federal U.S. constitutional Second Amendment rights. And I work to uphold those as Attorney General.
We appreciate that. We know that. As I said before, I've worked with very few elected officials who are able to keep their campaign promises. We know that going into it, that a lot of people say things that they're most likely wanting and wishful about, but it's something else to be in a position where you can say, listen, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to guard against that. And that's the job. And I'm going to do that. I appreciate that. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. Now, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to talk a little bit or ask you real quick in the minutes that you have. Tell me a little bit about these cold cases, because when I first heard that, I'm like, well, that sounds interesting. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. But why don't we walk through that a little bit? Because that's been quite a buzz in the circles I travel in.
Oh, I sure will. And Michael, let me throw this out there because I think you get a kick out of it. Right after I got elected, it shocked a lot of people when we defeated a 40-year incumbent. So I had a reporter ask me something, and they said, looked at me and realized I won, and they said, now, Brenna, what are you going to do? And I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do exactly what we told people we would do if we got elected. And that answer just took them by surprise. We had the blueprint. Yes, I mean we had the blueprint. We talked about what needed to be changed, and so it's a little bit sad that doing what you say you're going to do is such a surprise sometimes. But that's how we do it. And the cold case unit was part of that because I talked on the campaign trail about how Iowa needed a cold case unit. I was a county attorney. That was my background, and as a mom and county attorney, I know how tough these cold cases are. There's other like 400 unsolved homicides, more than that. And we know that every family needs answers, every community needs answers, and nobody should get away with murder in Iowa. These are tough cases. They weigh heavily on the hearts of law enforcement. Some of them have to retire before a case is solved, and they were the biggest advocates for our dedicated cold case unit. So I campaigned on that, and then we worked with the legislature to get it up and going, and we work with law enforcement, state, county, federal, local, everybody. We work with everybody on these cold cases, and we've already filed charges in 4 of these cases. 3 are awaiting trial. One is in prison for second-degree murder out of Harrison County. That was a case that he was sentenced 37 years later. So that just tells me how important it is to never give up.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Okay, so I was driving to Colorado. You know how it is. You get across Interstate 80, it doesn't make a difference. You've got time for conversation and plenty of it. And I was visiting with a guy that was with me. We were going along out to, long story made short, we had a lot of windshield time, right? And I was listening to a true crime podcast that dealt with these kinds of things. And he said, why are you so interested in that? He agreed that it was interesting to listen to and very compelling and somewhat emotional too. And I said, well, I'll tell you, I said, our family and our community experienced this a number of years ago when I was a pup. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, there's a gentleman in Bedford, Iowa, who's a great personal friend of my dad. I can remember hanging around him when I was a pup. named Boyd Novinger. And I said, and he was killed. He was murdered. There has never been arrest. And I said, and the sheriff was and still is a great friend of mine. And with no joke, I saw him and fellowshipped with him last weekend. His name's Lonnie Weed, and he was the sheriff during this investigation, this time. He's moved on from being a sheriff. He's retired now. And you can see, Brenna, you can see the pain on his face that these things haven't been brought to fruition. And he wanted very much to provide some measure of justice for this family, who are our family friends, and we knew about it. So these things are still hanging out there. So when I see this Harrison County cold case murder being brought full circle from, like you said, from the 80s, it's very personal for me, because a lot of us out there are saying, we know about some of these things. They have affected us directly, our friends and neighbors, maybe even our own loved ones. So to see somebody come back and say, I'm going to put emphasis on this, we're going to do our level best to decipher what we can and give these people some peace so justice can be sought and achieved, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, what are you willing to share with us on a personal level what that's like for you as the Attorney General? Because there must be a great deal of weight associated with that.
Well, I have to tell you, it's a blessing every day to wake up and to know that our cold case unit is operating, that working on all these cold cases. And I'm going to give kind of a personal example that I have permission from the family to talk about. But Barb Lenz, she's the victim in that cold case murder we were talking about in Harrison County. And that's the one that we talked about. We've had the trial. He's been convicted. He's been sent to prison on second-degree murder. I had a chance to go to Harrison County after the trial was all over and they'd had a chance to take a breath and just sit down and talk with them afterwards, with the county attorney, with law enforcement, but also with Barb's family. And she had a big family. And in fact, at the time that she went missing, and that's, her body was never found, but at the time she went missing 37 years ago, she had a little toddler daughter at the time. And so I sat there with her daughter, Lindsay, and all of Barb's relatives that care so much about her and love her so much, and heard everything they went through and how worried they were for her, and how much they how much this weighed on them over the years and how much it weighed on law enforcement. But I got to sit there with her daughter, who's all grown up now and a woman of her own with her own kids, and just realize the tremendous impact that everybody working on this case made for justice, but also for Barb's family, because it's about her, it's about justice, it's also about making sure that we're there for the victims and survivors in that whole community. So that was a very special day for me to get to just sit down and hear from them what it was like, what the trial was like, how they felt about it now, all the things that were on their mind. And it was like a family reunion, believe it or not. The only thing we didn't have was a potluck. Otherwise, it would have been just like a family reunion. But that was a very special moment. And one of those moments I treasure in my heart for the tough days, because every day is not easy. But those are the kind of days that we work for, when we can come together and celebrate justice and remember somebody who was taken way too soon.
Well, I can see how it may feel like that, and I can see how those things are important, because when I think through what an attorney general does, what the responsibilities are, what a work day or work week might look like for you and your staff, I don't know how you could possibly ever get it all done. But I suppose in cases like this or scenarios like this, having some sort of resolve that brings comfort and peace to people, to families, I can only imagine that would probably be very rewarding. It probably makes those long, tough days worth it. It makes you say, when you're sitting there in law school going, do I really need to know this? I can't believe I just crammed for 18 hours to prepare for this. It makes all that work, I'm assuming, worth it. I mean, do you have success stories in your staff? I mean, these people who say, I can't believe I'm doing this. I mean, what's it like to work among these people? Because you have a lot of people that work with and for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have to say that that's been one of the most rewarding teams. So I think working for justice is its own reward, to get to help victims, to work with law enforcement, keeping Iowa safe, and just knowing that, we're doing the right thing and we're working for justice for the right thing. And so it's really neat to see what that means for our whole team. And we have a team of prosecutors that works really hard. They go all over Iowa, not just on cold cases. We've got a dedicated prosecutor for that, but they help lots of counties with murder cases or cases where we need to prosecute a child molester or rapist or other type of case where it helps us to be there either to work with the county attorney or to do the case for the county attorney. We do that all over Iowa, and they love doing that. It really fills them up when they come back from a trial, and they tell me how it went, and I also, of course, hear from law enforcement and families and others their thanks for what our office is doing. So it's really a special thing. Sure, there's some tough stuff, don't get me wrong, but life is like that, but getting to work for justice really is its own reward. And that's why I became a county attorney. That's why I became a prosecutor. And that's exactly the kind of spirit that I bring with me into the Attorney General's office.
So you care about people's rights and their liberties. Is that what you're saying to me right now?
Absolutely. Yep. And making it happen. When injustice happens, we want to bring about justice.
Well, it's interesting. That popped into my head and it blurted out of my mouth as you figured out, as you know, visiting with me is kind of like that. So do you have an opponent? Because I know that you do, but do you have an opponent you want to mention?
I do. I have a radical liberal trial lawyer from Mount Vernon. His name's Nate Willems. He is my opponent in the general election. He's a Democrat. He is not a friend of the Second Amendment, to be sure.
No, he's not. I remember his time in the legislature. Do you remember any of it specifically? I'm curious.
Well, a little bit of it. I mean, a couple of things. He voted against the castle doctrine. People should be able to protect themselves in their own home or business, even using deadly force if that's what it takes. And also stand your ground. That was something else he voted against. And he even voted, and this is going to take you to the Wayback Machine here, because it was a little while ago. And some of your folks may remember this, and they may have come on after that. But the shall issue for sheriffs. So he voted against shall issue laws in our state at a time when most people in his party were supporting shall issue. And I don't know, Michael, if your listeners know what that remembers that history there, but that was a big deal at the time. It had to pass. It had to pass Democrat chambers, right? And he voted against it. Basically, that if somebody can get a permit, they should be able to get it. And the Second Amendment shouldn't be different in one county that it is in another, just because of where somebody happens to live and their sheriff's view about whether they want to issue permits to carry or not.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that we talk about this, because I remember at the time, so we're talking, the build up to that was 2004 through roughly 2009, 10, that area. And it was, we wanted to have permits to carry being issued by the sheriff of each county. They're centrally sent from DPS now, but the sheriffs in each county would sign off on those on an individual basis. And at that time, the law was may issue. So the sheriff may or may not issue you a permit. So sheriffs that had constitutionally aligned minds would often, issue without problem, unless there was a reason that they need to say, hey, I have to take issue with this. These are the bona fide reasons why, unless that was an issue or a problem, you would be issued. And then you'd go the next county over. And depending on who won the election, your rights would either materialize or evaporate at will. It was absolutely nuts. And so I can tell you, living in Jasper County at that time, my sheriff wouldn't issue. I went in there 6 years in a row on my birthday and was told by the people at the counter, don't even bother putting in an application. He's not going to issue it. That's no joke. That's what I experienced. And that's what a lot of people were. And so it came together that I started talking with a lot of people who were in the legislature, most of which were Democrats, because there was a Democrat House, a Democrat Senate, and a Democrat governor when this all came to fruition. And they're like, well, yeah, I get it. I know what you want to do, but I'm just really not in for that. I'm like, so you don't trust me as a bona fide good guy who goes through a background check and all these other things, which I already own all the guns. And these people do legally own them, but I just can't actually carry it or use it in that way. Sorry. And finally, the legislature came along and said, we absolutely have to do this. And there was a great deal of reluctance, I sensed, but they did do it. And despite all that, Mr. Willems said, no, I'm not going to do that. He wouldn't go along for the ride, if you will. That's one way to put it. But the reality was he doesn't trust you and me enough to say, I want your civil liberties protected. I want your rights not only enshrined, but protected. I want to respect those things. He doesn't appear to have any of that. And I'm not going to pull any punches about it. And do I want that person who thinks that way, who behaves that way, who approaches your human rights that way in a position as Attorney General of this state? No. And so if the Second Amendment isn't a problem for you, or isn't your marquee item, or isn't even on your radar, think about that. Ask yourself what mindset is necessary to behave and think that way. And then you want them in a position of Attorney General. It doesn't matter if you don't like the Second Amendment at all. You can't have somebody who is inconsistent in their ideologies and their thoughts in that position. It's absolutely indefensible. We can't have that. So I'm glad that we have a clear candidate, a trustworthy, a proven candidate. Thank you for that. But what else should we know about Brenna Bird?
Well, a lot of different things, and we could talk about Constitution, I think, all day long, because that is what we do in our office. We do all kinds of things in our office. So we talked about what we've done to protect victims of crime in the cold case unit. We've also proposed things to the legislature that have become law that I think are pretty important for victims. One is something I came across as a prosecutor that I realized needed to be fixed back when I was a county attorney, and that's making sure that a victim of sexual abuse, like rape, for example, is entitled to a lifetime protective order. They shouldn't have to go back to court with the burden on them to try to get that protective order renewed every time it would expire. And that's the way our law was before. And that's why I asked the legislature to let victims get that lifetime protective orders. The burden's not on them. They don't have to relive it. They don't have to be traumatized by it. You know, it came up because all these things come from real people for me, Michael. Yeah. And I had a woman who was a victim of rape when she was under the age of 18. And then as an adult, she was in a grocery store and she ran into her rapist at the grocery store. It was terrifying for her. Just imagine turning the aisle and whoa, I just can't imagine what that was like. So she was very upset. And she checked on her protective order and it had expired and she didn't have a way to renew it at that point. And I thought, that is so wrong. Why would the burden be on her to renew something? This is something she should be entitled to for as long as she wants and as long as she is alive. And so I thought, when I get a chance to fix something like that, I'm going to do it. And I'm very grateful that that was able to become law here in Iowa. I think things like that make a big difference. I'm trying to look out for victims as best I can, and also working with our law enforcement. They do a good job of keeping Iowa safe. We really have good quality law enforcement here in our state that work hard, uphold the law, doing the right thing, and doing a tough job.
I agree. I know that we only budgeted a little bit of time because you've got a few things to accomplish in the average day. Is there anything else we need to squeak in real quick before we let you go?
Well, I'm just going to add this. I mean, I think we've known each other for a long time, and I think we both have the same philosophy about a lot of things, and one of them is about the grassroots. And I think it really makes a difference when Iowans engage, when you talk at the coffee shop or your church or your friend groups. You know, we're a well-educated state, I think, and we stay up on the issues, but it's really important that people engage this election, stay up on the issues, make sure that people are voting, that they're informed, and that they understand the difference between candidates on some of these key issues, because we take nothing for granted. I know with the major changes that I've made in the Attorney General's office, the liberals are really targeting me this year. And honestly, I take that as a compliment because I did say what I would do. I did it. And they really don't like it, especially those who don't respect our Second Amendment rights and some of the other rights that we all hold dear. So it makes a difference to be engaged, to be involved. And that is what helps for somebody like me to get to continue to serve as your Attorney General, is all that support from every single corner of the state. So just encourage people to be involved, do something, and let us know who you are so we can stay in touch.
Fantastic. We appreciate that. Again, I'd like to invite you onto our candidate files. And then if you have time later on, down the campaign trail and you can block off a little bit more, we'd like to have you back for a longer form video if you're able. We'd love those things. And I think that it's going to help people understand what you're talking about. Like, hey, I listened to this thing and I learned more about Brenna Bird than I did before. It's more than just an attorney general's race. We're talking about a way of life. We're talking about an ideology. We're talking about justice. And when you think about these things, you and I may not really need X amount of money or a car that does this or whatever these other things are. They're tangible and you and I like them. That's fine. But what do we really need in life? We need love, fidelity, those kinds of things. We need justice. Those are things that may not be something we can touch, but Attorney General Bird, we absolutely can't live without things like that. We need justice. You're providing that. Your staff is providing that. You're helping others down into a county and local level provide that and do that well. And that's absolutely fantastic and totally necessary. Thank you for that. I appreciate your time today.
And I appreciate you and everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye.